if you've been riding bikes for any length of time, you've had a rear slide. Everyone's had a rear slide a little bit, whether it was scary or a big drift or whatever. You've had a rear buck a little bit. And it happens, okay. It's not nearly as big a deal as what that first time, if you ever get that front that tucks slightly and it snaps back, but you're okay. Oh man, that's a way bigger pucker moment than when the rear steps out a little bit. So yeah, working on whatever you can do to develop feel in the front tire, that's the most crucial thing. I'm curious from your coaching, I have one in mind, but I'm curious what your thought is. Do you have any particular drills or things that you think are great for riders to practice or think about to help them develop and kind of get some more idea of understanding of what that front tire is doing?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. There was for a long time, and it's still out there, this whole thing is you should keep all your weight off the handlebars, that you need to like squeeze the tank even under braking, so there's no weight under your handlebars. And I agree to a point, but mostly I don't agree. I think you need to have some level of weight in your hands. And you touched on it earlier without even really knowing that this was where I was going to go, is, yeah, if I death grip, I have no feel, right? Like think about typing on a keyboard, right? If you put all your weight on your hands and try to type, you're not going to be able to type, right? But also think about if you take all the weight off of your hands and you hover your hands above the keyboard and try to type, you're also going to struggle, right? You need a little bit of both. You need a little bit of pressure there. You need to have feel.
If for just some stability.
Just for some stability. And even under braking, how we put weight on our hands under braking changes from how when we're cornering, right? As I'm braking, I try to drive all the pressure through the palm of my hand. I'm not death gripping, and I don't want it coming through my fingers. I want it coming into my palm because then I can use my larger arm muscles. And you're going to feel, you're not locking your elbows. You're going to feel with the front, surprisingly, you're going to feel so much what's happening from the front. You're going to feel the suspension move up, and you're going to feel that pressure compress and release on your hands as what the front's doing. And you're like, oh. And same thing like with the brake lever, right? Like there's a video I'm planning on this about a little tip that I learned from a very high level racer about how we release the brake lever. And it's basically letting you're not just letting go of the brake lever with your finger, you're basically dragging it or slipping your fingers off the top of it. And it gives you this incredible amount of feel as to what the brake is doing. And it's, thinking about what your hands are doing and putting your posture into a certain position that allows your hands to feel what's going on. And it's surprising how easy it is to kind of start developing feel when you allow yourself to do what for most people is kind of natural. Most of us realize that death gripping isn't natural. We can tell, okay, I'm brand new, I'm nervous and I'm scared, but then you get home and your shoulders hurt because they've been flexed and you're like, right? But then we get this bad advice of you should have no pressure on your hands. You should be really light, like baby bird. And I've used the baby birds thing, right? And I think better than baby birds is Capri Sun. How hard do you hold on to a Capri Sun when you open it? And Capri Suns, like for our international viewers and listeners, Capri Suns are like a little bag. It's a little bag of juice that you have to stab a straw through the top of it.
Just Google it. Nobody wants to hear Dave explain a Capri Sun.
but like if you hold on to it really tight, if you death grip it, when you put the straw in, obviously you're going to get shot in the face with juice.
Capri Sun.
And if you don't hold it tight enough, the bag, you're not going to be able to get the straw through the little thing to drink your sugary drink. So it's the right amount. Yeah. And how do we develop that? Well, you work on it. I work on it every time I ride. I'm always working on feel. How tight am I holding on with my hands? Yep. And what I do with my legs and feet can affect that and help and whatever. But yeah.
There's two drills that I like for people. The first is if you have a sloped driveway or a slightly sloped hill somewhere that's nearby that's convenient that you can go mess around on. Walk next to your bike, having your hands on the handlebars and your hand on the front brake. Walk next to your bike down the hill and just experience the feeling of when I go to the brakes, you'll hear the brakes because the engine's not running. You'll hear the brakes dragging. You'll feel the weight transfer forward. you'll feel the tire going over dips more clearly than if it is just unweighted and you're just pushing it straight along. Because as you go over it, it's going to go through the dip and bounce back, but you're going to have a lot more control over it because of the force you're putting on the brake lever. I think that's an interesting one, and it just gives you this sort of tangible thing to think about of how much brake force does it actually take to make a difference, and it's surprisingly little.
Well, and ironically, that percentage that you're talking about, we do that drill all the time, and it's how you should push your bike in the drive. You should always do this every time you're moving your motorcycle. But that percentage point that you're talking about, that's 1% brake pressure. That's what 95% of trail braking is that much brake pressure.
It's a tiny amount.
So the people who are opposed to the idea of trail braking, they're like, oh, if you go to the front brake, it's going to make the motorcycle stand up. 1% brake pressure is very unlikely to make the motorcycle want to stand up, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a great drill to do. Anybody can go do it. You can do it in the fall. You can do it whenever you want. But just go push your bike around and just feel that brake, feel the front end loading. It sounds silly, but you're gonna develop a little bit of feel for that front end.
And you're developing muscle memory, which can't be understated, the value of that.
The other one I like, which is don't do this all the time, but in the right environment, this is a fun drill to do, is I've done this before on a bike where they basically put us on the bike. We went and did some laps, and then they took all of the rebound damping out of the bike, front and rear. They just dialed all the rebound out. They left the compression, but they dialed all the rebound out. Actually, no, I think they dialed it all out.
I thought they did. Yeah, this is an old champ school. I don't think they do this anymore. But Yamaha champ
it's a great drill.
Oh, I think because of the time it took.
Yeah.
But,
so basically, you leave the preload alone, so the spring is still there. You're still supported, but you take all the damping out. And what this does is now every input that the bike has is dramatic. If you go to the brakes abruptly, it pitches onto the nose. If you go to the gas abruptly, it pitches back. If you drop the brakes abruptly, it pitches up. You get this very significant feedback as to what you're doing on the bike and how your inputs are making this difference. Whereas really good damping, which most modern bikes have pretty darn good damping actually, you can mask a lot of bad habits with rebound and compression damping. Where this drill, you're naked, it's exposed. Every little input you do, the bike is telling you about it. I loved that drill.
Well, before we continue, because there's another part of this drill, right?
Yeah.
And I'll ask you the question at the end of it. So the first part of the drill is they go in and they, because everyone's heard, race bike, you need to stiffen up the suspension, right? Yeah. So they go through and they take all the damping out. So there's no compression, no rebound. You're only operating on the spring. And then you went and did a bunch of laps. And then they came back, or maybe it was vice versa, and they cranked everything to the max rebound, max compression. They stiffened it up for you, right? And then they sent you out. Do you remember which bike was easier to ride? Which version?
So yeah, you kind of set sort of a rough idea of what it feels like with correct damping, and then they go the two directions. You're trying to get back to your correct damping lap time, or as close as you can to it. When it's the loose, open-ended one, you can actually get pretty darn close. You've got to be perfect. You've got to be super smooth everywhere. You cannot make mistakes. But when they do the one where it's all the way cranked down, it is nearly impossible to ride. The bike does not want to turn. It doesn't want to brake. When you go to the gas, the rear spins. Like when you really crank down the damping and effectively lock out the suspension, it is miserable to ride, and it's very sketchy. When you go to the brakes, the bike doesn't load the front at all. It just kind of skims across the top. It is not a fun feeling.